I've been working in finance for the last 2 years of my life. And I've realized that a lot of people, they like to hate on credit cards and they say that credit cards are bad. And they mainly say this because they at least know one or two people who abuse credit cards. And what I mean by that is that those people, they overspend on their budget with the credit card. Meaning if they can only pay off $2,000, they'll use off $4,000 from the credit card. Because to them, it's almost like a loan. They don't really give a fuck about their credits. They'll just use it and they'll repay it back years later. I'm here to tell you that although that's true, although that a lot of people do use their credit cards irresponsibly, you shouldn't be afraid to take one out yourself as long as you're not a complete retard. You do have to be very careful with them, but they're not bad. They're not bad at all. And anybody who tells you they're bad is a moron. Especially if you're a young guy who's broke right after high school. If you're a young guy who's broke right after you finish high school or even in college, you especially need one. The reason being is that you're starting from the bottom. If you start from the bottom, you can't really buy anything in cash. You can't go buy a $20,000 car in cash. You really can't. Even a $5,000 car. How the fuck are you supposed to buy a $5,000 car right after high school when you're barely going to get a job? Even if you had one for like a year, you're probably working part-time. More than likely, you probably don't have $5,000 saved up. You can't really buy a car fully in cash, let alone other things, let alone a fucking house. Don't even think about buying a house when you're young. So we're talking about buying a car here, a normal purchase, or even if you need, for example, a laptop for your school. You probably don't just want to spend $1,000 just like that. I know for a lot of people, to them, $1,000 or even $5,000 may not seem like a lot. But when you truthfully start from the bottom, how I did myself, $5,000 to you, that's like fucking having $1 million. When you're truthfully 18 years of age, right after high school, dead fucking broke, you can't afford a car. You cannot even afford, you can barely even afford your fucking phone bill, gas. You can barely even afford to take girls on dates. Straight up. And what I mean by dates is taking them to fucking In-N-Out. I don't even mean a fancy date. I'm talking about fucking McDonald's and fucking Happy Meals. That's what I'm talking about. You're fucking broke as a motherfucking joke. Now, you gotta be very careful with taking a credit card out because you don't want to end up like these retards that do end up overspending it, which make credit cards look bad. But a credit card is necessary in order to build up your credit, and you need the credit card to build up the credit in order to take out a loan for a car. And what I mean by loan is you take out the car and you pay it off over time with the dealership. Obviously, everybody knows this, or you should know this. Now, the reason for why you want to pay it off over time is because, like I said, you're fucking dead broke. And the only way that a dealership is going to agree to allow you to pay that car over time is by looking at your credit. But if you have no credit cards, if you have no previous credit history, then you're obviously not going to be able to take out the fucking loan for the car. So you have to be very careful. And what I mean by loan is basically you finance the car, meaning you pay it over time. These are basic finance terms. Finance, loan, pay it off over time. Everybody should know this already, right? Everybody knows that if you finance a car, it's going to come with interest. Everybody should know this already. This isn't fucking, economics back in high school. By this point, if you're watching my videos, you should probably have graduated high school already. So you know what these terms mean, kind of, at least. But you should know what loan, finance, interest mean, okay? So I hope I'm not talking to a bunch of fucking elementary kids. I hope I'm talking to at least some, full-grown adults, 18-year-olds, at least. So if you understand these terms, then you understand that a credit card is needed in order to build up your credit to take out a car by finance, so you can pay it off over time. Because that's the best way for a teenager, or I say teenager, for an 18-year-old to be able to get a car at that age. Now, don't be a fucking retard. Don't take out a car that's fucking $30,000. No. Take out maybe a $7, $8, $9, maybe even $10,000 car. That's it, bro. You don't want a fucking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 car or a $40,000 debt when you're fucking 18. That's the last thing you want. A nice $10,000 car is very nice for when you're 18. The reason being is that a $10,000 car, it's expensive enough to the point to where it's not going to break down on you by the next day or the next month or the next year. It's going to last you a pretty long while, but it's also not too exclusive. It's not to the point to where people are going to look at you and be like, that's a fucking rich ass 18-year-old. You don't want to look like a rich 18-year-old when you're fucking broke. You don't want to do that. So whenever you hear people say credit cards are bad, they're right in the fact that they're bad if you're a fucking moron with it, right? If you're overspending and you fuck up your credit instead of building it, then yes, you're a fucking retard and you don't deserve a credit card. But if you're a common sense, normal thinking individual and you're not a complete fucking moron or retard, then of course, yes, the credit card is convenient for you because you're able to build up your credit. And eventually, if you want to take out a mortgage on a house, you're going to need credit. And the best way to build up credit is to get credit cards. First, let's say you take out one credit card. I'm not saying you take out 3 or 4. When you're 18, you only need one. One for a year at least. Maybe two max. When you're young, you want to be careful with the way you use a credit card. Of course, always make sure you pay it off on time. Make sure you don't overspend. Make sure you're not a complete fucking retard with it. And of course, over time, you're going to want to get a few more credit cards. But that's, with more years passing by. Once you're 22, 23, 24, 25. You don't want to get fucking 4 when you're 18. Hell no. You don't need 4 credit cards when you're 18. You need maybe 1 or 2 fucking max. That's it. And that's especially true if you finance a car. If you finance a car, you don't necessarily need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 credit cards. The reason being is that the financing of the car itself also builds up your credits. That's also a good thing. That's also like another line of credits. That's basically like you telling the dealership, give me this loan for the car, and you're promising the dealer that you're going to pay him back. And on a long enough time frame, once you do pay him back, it's going to go to your credit history, and then other lenders are going to be able to see like, oh, this 18-year-old who's now 20 years old by the time you pay off your car, or 21, 22, whatever age you are, this 22-year-old already paid off their car. That means they are responsible with loans. Let's give them a mortgage, for example. Now, whether a mortgage is good or not, it depends on many factors. I can make a whole fucking video on it. It depends on your age, where you live, who you're taking it out with, if you're taking it out by yourself, what the interest is on it. It's very complex. But if you are going to take out a mortgage, then obviously you need credit. Now, a lot of people who I've heard also say that credit cards are bad are people who grew up with money. People who grow up with money say credit cards are bad and useless because they've never needed one. Why? Because they have money. They've had money from a young age. When they're 18 and they have 100K from the bank, from the fucking trust fund by their parents, of course they say that they don't need a fucking credit card because they could go buy a fucking car in cash. They're welcome to spend 30K in cash just like that because they have money. But as for you, someone who's broke, like myself, like how I was, and still am, you need a fucking credit card. We need credit cards. In the beginning, at least. Eventually, if you're a multi-billionaire, you don't fucking need one, bro. You don't fucking need one because you could just spend cash everywhere. I think it would actually harm the billionaire if they have a credit card because there's no fucking point in them having one. They're just going to accrue interest on it when they can just pay it off in cash. But for the average guy who just got out of high school, who's 17, 18, 19 years old, or still in college, you need a fucking credit card, bro. So anybody who tells you credit is bad, don't take out a credit card, blah, 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 etc., they're either born with money, or 2, they've just met too many people who have abused credit cards. Now, of course, that's a problem. And you don't want to fall into that trap of abusing credit cards. Like I said, don't overspend on your budget. If your credit limit is $4,000, just spend maybe $500 to $1,000 max a month. And make sure you pay it off. Make sure you have that money in the bank. Don't overspend. Don't say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to pay this in credits because next week I'm going to get my check and then with my check I can pay off the credit card. No, bro. Don't fucking overspend. Make sure you have that money already in the bank and more. You want more money than when you're spending on the credit card. Don't look at credit cards as a negative. Don't look at credit cards as a crutch. Use them as an asset. An asset meaning it benefits you in some type of way. Whether it's building up your credit or just learning the responsibility of using money. That's also a big one. When you have a credit card, you learn to be responsible. You learn not to be an idiot. As long as you have common sense. If you're a complete retard, then you learn to be a fucking even more retarded. Because now you're overspending on your credit card. You build down your credit instead of building it up. And you ruin it. In that case, you're going into debt. Which is a fucking moronic, idiotic move that you're doing at 18 years of age. You don't want to be doing that when you're young. So don't listen to anybody who tells you that credit cards are bad or they're useless or blah, 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 etc. Because those people don't know what they're talking about. As long as, like I said, as long as you're a common sense individual, you should take one out. Now, if you're not a common sense individual, then my advice to you would be to be very careful if you are going to take one out, or just don't take one out at all. If you don't trust yourself with one, don't take it out. Straight like that, bro. Because you're going to end up ruining your credit. You're going to go into debt and it's going to become even worse. But if you do believe in yourself and you do trust yourself, then go ahead. There's no problem with it, bro. Straight up. Too many people are fucking pussies out here, bro. There's nothing wrong with taking out a credit card. And honestly, if you fuck up your credit, bro, you are literally a fucking retard. You're a moron, bro. You're actually fucking moronic. It's not really that hard to take out a credit card and maintain your credit and have really good credit history. It's really not that difficult. So, yeah, like I said, credit cards are not bad. They are useful. Especially if you're broke and you're just, barely building up your money at a fast food job. And sometimes, even if your credit card has a $1,000 or $2,000 limit, when you're dead broke, sometimes you're only going to use $50 worth of that in a month because that's all you can afford. That's all you could, pay for. And it is what it is. That's what a credit card is used for, just to pay some expenses that you can repay back so you can build up your credit. sometimes you don't have to use the full amount. And I wouldn't recommend using the full amount. That's actually a pretty bad thing. Just use a small percentage of it. For example, let's say you have $1,000. Maybe use in the first few months $50 to $100 just to get used to it, just to understand how it works. And then over time, you could probably build up to $300-400. And then after that, you can maybe in a year or two start taking out another credit card and then see how that one works. And then by then, you probably have your financing your car and you have 3 lines of credit by the time you're 20, 21. And you can eventually just continue building it up. And you'll reach a point if you do become like a multi-billionaire where I've read that a lot of these guys don't even use credit, to be honest. They really don't use credit. They just have cash. And honestly, it's very smart because why the fuck are they going to take out credit? Credit cards have interest. Why would they take out a credit on, let's say, a fucking car or a fucking building or something else? Why? They have cash. There's no point in them taking out credit. So, but that's only when you reach like multi-millionaire level. Perhaps not billionaire. Perhaps I'm exaggerating with the billionaire. But definitely a multi-millionaire. They probably don't need too much credit, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure they use it sometimes, especially when it's for their business, because I believe when it comes to businesses, you can deduct the interest from the credit card. Depending on what expense you use it for, especially if it's for the business, you can deduct it on your taxes. But that's a whole different fucking topic. But anyways, credit cards are not bad. They're good, especially if you're young. If you're broke, you should probably take one out. It might sound contradictory because it almost seems like you're taking even more money out than when you have because you're broke. You're taking out a credit card, which is a loan. But like I said, I'm not telling you to use the entire loan. What I'm saying is to build up your credit so that even though you're broke, you can eventually take out a small little car or something, whether it's $6,000-7,000, because you do need a car when you're young to go to work, to travel to different places, to school, to work, to your house, etc. If you have a girl, especially, getting a car is going to be much cheaper than you taking your girl out to a fucking hotel and spending $100 every single night just to lay it down on her. Just fucking have sex in the car. Fuck it. You know what I mean? Just hide somewhere. Park somewhere. Fuck it. Down the street. Make sure it's dark. Lay it down. And that's it. It's cheaper than fucking going out and buying a fucking hotel for $100 a night. That's insane, bro. If you fuck 5 times a month, that's $500. Just get the car. It's much cheaper on a long enough time frame. If you think about it, 5 times 100 is $500 a month. 500 times 12 months is $6,000 in a year. $6,000 is what a car would cost you. Having sex is more expensive than a fucking car. If you take out a $5,000 car, it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the fucking hotel. And you can lay it down in the fucking car. Let's be honest, bro. Every single 18, 19-year-old is probably fucking in the car. So anyways, yes, credit cards are good. Don't be afraid to use them. And if you're going to take one out, don't be a fucking retard, okay? Build up your credit like a normal, common sense person. Don't be a moronic idiot, all right? Use maybe $25, $50 worth of it, and eventually you can build up on it once you start getting more money at your job or whatever you're doing. So yes, anybody who tells you that credit cards are bad or useless, they don't know what they're talking about. And reminder, do not be a fucking retard with the credit card.